By the way, you know, when I first met Les Paul, and I did, and Les and I became pretty close friends over the years, you know. I did some work on his guitars for him, and just a wonderful human being. Anyway, when I first met Les, I told him about this guitar, and I said, hey, I'm going to bring it in, I'll leave it. That's when I was still working at Danny's. I said, next time you're in, I'll just put it under the bench in Danny's shop, and it'll be there. Because back in those days, Les was a pretty regular person. Danny used to sell a lot of Les Paul guitars in those days, you know. So Les would come by and just hang out, play. We played lots of times, you know. What a thrill that was for me, too. You have to imagine a little guy like me, 13, 14 years old, when Les Paul and Mary Ford, every week they came out with a new hit record, you know. And I bought them all those 78s, and sat down in my dad's cellar with my guitar, trying to play along with Les Paul, trying to figure out how he played the solos and all the chords. And I was just obsessed with that. And to be at Danny Armstrong's, and this guy walks in. I said to Eddie Dio, I said, that's Les Paul. He said, yeah, he comes in all the time. I said, wow. And Danny introduced me to him. You know, I remember going back to my hotel. I was living in the city at that time. I called my dad and I said, you're not going to believe who I played with today. And when and over the years, I did some work for Les, you know. I got to meet all my heroes. I was very lucky. I'm going to mention some names. I think people out there probably don't even know a lot of really great guitar players that existed and have gone on. Some of them are still around. Kenny Burrell is still with us. Kenny became a close friend of mine too. But if you don't know these names, I would suggest, you know, everybody likes to get on the internet and Google names and all that stuff. I don't know a whole lot about that, but I'm going to mention some names. I would look up Jimmy Rainey, for sure. Probably one of the best bebop guitar players that ever lived. He was on the level of a Charlie Parker. Tal Farlow, another great bebop guitar player. Chuck Wayne. Chuck Wayne was playing fast guitar, really fast. He had a great pick hand, way before fast became in the thing. You know, all these guys flying around the guitar doing. Chuck was doing that back in the 40s. You know, he was very, very. Joe Puma. It's just, there's a ton, as I mentioned before, Attilo Zolar. And there's a whole string of studio players. Tony Mazzola, Al Caiola, Al Casamente, Barry Galbraith. Jesus, man, what a great guitar player he was. Johnny Smith, George Van Eps. Seriously, people, look some of these names up. Do yourself a favor. Bass players, too. Milt Hinton. People never heard of Milt Hinton, the father of the bass, almost. You know. Bob Cranshaw. Of course, you all should know Ron Carter. Anyway, I'll do more on that some other time. I'm going to play some of this stuff. I'm going to open up. I forget how it opens. Let me see. Do I have the TV on? I don't. I thought I had them on. I thought I turned this on. This thing works all the time. Oh, there it is. Where's the volume? Let's just see. Mm-hmm. Oh, come on, why is it doing that? I don't know why it won't start at the beginning. What happened at the beginning? Because it should start with my dad talking.
The following recordings are copies of disc recordings made on home-type recording equipment in 1942 by Mr. James Thompson. The first will be Hawaiian guitar, James Thompson, and accompanying guitar, Jake Galbraith.
That's not this guitar. That's Jake Galbraith had another guitar. Hey Pete, or Dave, take that case there. Take that thing out, because that's my dad's steel guitar. Anyway, this is the guitar that my dad's playing on this recording. He didn't make this one, but he did modify the pickup a little bit. You know. And he played this thing all the time. I'm just going to skip to some other stuff. He did this all with a flat pick too, like a regular. He did all this. He used some fingers like this. You know, when he was playing the steel, he'd do this. And again, he never took any lessons. Didn't know any. Most of these recordings, he took off of existing recordings. There's a whole bunch of Hawaiian music back in those days, and he just copied what was on the records. He heard it and found a way to play it. E minor. Jesus. That song that you're playing right now, a little story about that too. Years and years ago, when I was playing full time, I did a lot of jazz gigs, I did a lot of this and that. One gig I did for almost 2 years. There was a place called the Hawaii Kai up on Broadway and 51st Street, somewhere up there. It was a supper club dedicated to Hawaiian music, showtime. They had Hawaiian girl dancers, doing the hulas, all that stuff. Matt Hyland was the guy vocalist, and there was a guy named George Barr who played steel guitar, and they had ukulele players, and they needed a guitar player, and there's a whole long story about how I got that gig. Anyway, I went to audition for that gig. I think I was supposed to show up at 1 o'clock. I got there around 10 to 1. I remember George, the first thing George said to me, he said, "I like you already." He showed up on time, you know. And he started discussing the music that we were going to be playing, you know. He said, you've been around a little bit. You probably know a lot of the standard kind of Hawaiian songs. And I did. You know, I played Lovely Hula Hands, Blue Hawaii. Those are like kind of pop tunes. And back in those days, when you were calling yourself a musician and you did a lot of different things, you knew how to play some of that. And I did. And then he said, but we play a lot of really authentic Hawaiian music, because the girls are from Hawaii, and they dance to all these things, you know. He says, he said, there's one called the Hilo Hawaiian March. I said, oh, yeah, I know that. He said, what do you mean you know that? I says, yeah, I know it. He says, and I kind of hummed the tune. He says, Jesus, I never knew anybody that would know that song. I said, oh, I got to tell you the truth. My dad when I was a kid, my dad loved Hawaiian music and that stuff. I've been playing that. He said, he said, "No." So he sat down and he played it. And I played for him. He says, "No, we're not going to have any problems at all." So I played 7 nights a week there. 3 shows a night, and I did that for almost 2 years. And then whenever I had a chance to do like a jazz gig, like Kenny Burrell at that time had a place called The Guitar. And I used to play there from time to time. And when my turn came up, I would get a sub for the Hawaii Kai, and they would do that, George Bell and all that, because he knew that my heart was really, I wanted to play jazz. Anyway, I thought you might like to know that. Stories.
Next will be a mandolin selection by Jake Galbraith, accompanying guitar, James Thompson.
I'm going to go ahead and pass up. I want to get to something.
Next is Hawaiian guitar, James Thompson, accompanying guitar, James Burkett.
That's my Uncle Jim. I'm going to pass that too.
Next is a multiple recording by James Thompson on Hawaiian guitar. Second part was dubbed in from another
Yeah, this
recording.
is the multiple recording I was talking about. The signal on a better machine is a lot better. This is just going through the couple little speakers here. I think, I know when I put the headset on and go right into it, it really comes out. You have to tape slip him when he made it.
Next will be 12th Street Rag on mandolin
Okay.
by James Thompson, accompanied by Jake Galbraith.
He introduces that wrong. It is the 12th Street Rag, and my dad's playing mandolin, and that's not Jake Galbraith playing guitar. That is, in fact, Kenny Hoyer playing guitar, the guy I mentioned before. And this is one of the few recordings I have with the electric bass on it that my dad made, modified guitar, bass, whatever. Again, we're not talking about rock and roll bass slapping and popping. We're talking about dong, 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 that kind of bass playing. That's what they did. That's the music they were playing. So don't be expecting to hear that. It's kind of like, and going back to Anthony's, well, I wanted this and I wanted that. Yeah, I know what you wanted. So do I. But it doesn't exist. And I'm having trouble getting it to exist. It's the same thing here. This is what it was. This is where they were at. They didn't have a cell phone, okay? But this is my dad playing mandolin, and Kenny's on guitar playing that style I was talking about before. And the guy playing the bass lived down the street. His name was Del Roney. Del played mandolin. My dad probably just said, here, Del, play some notes on this. Yeah, that's probably what it was. And there are some parts where you don't really hear it, but there's a few spots where you actually can, right? You heard it, right, Joe? It's there. And again, we're going through my little TV I have here at the shop and 2 little speakers, and we're trying to pick it up with a microphone here for you people. I often thought maybe any of you people out there would like to have a copy of some of this stuff. We might try to market it somehow a little bit, maybe. We can make up a bunch of them and, just pay for the disc and shipping and whatever, something. If anybody really wanted to, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, this is a song called the 12th Street Rag. Back in those days, almost everybody played the 12th Street Rag. That's the other thing, too. A lot of musicians, they say, Carl, man, you know so many songs. You know all these. I say, yeah, well, I grew up with all that, It's all kinds of music.